Simon O'Connor.
Mr Speaker, I'm very pleased to rise and speak on this Construction Contracts Amendment Bill in its third reading. I want to just tap a few or reply to a few of the thoughts that have been put up by the previous speaker and others, but I want to acknowledge first and foremost the Minister in charge, Nick Smith, who has guided this through, and of course the work of Melissa Lee and the Commerce Select Committee, of which I'm pleased to sit on. This is a bill which has been, I think, rightly looked at carefully and cautiously. I think when it comes to areas such as the construction industry, it's important to get things right first up, be that in building a house or analogously here when it comes to legislation. And so we're hearing in the last speaker's dissertation, if you will, concerns around why it's taken so long to address this issue of retentions. Well, look, fundamentally, we as a government, as a committee, wanted to make sure we got this right. We want it based on good evidence, and we want it based on consultation. And I know there's been a lot of consultation by the Minister and officials and discussions, including myself, with builders in the electorate. So that's been relatively important. And I think in this bill, we do have a comprehensive response to this. We've also, in a way, set it up more around the trust system, so retentions within trust rather than bonds. I think I just want to mention that briefly. Don't want to go into all the differences, but suffice to say, trying to work retentions in a bond structure is not going to work as effectively as that as a trust. There's also been suggestions that we're not implementing this quickly enough. Look, when it comes to any legislation, Mr Speaker, it's important that those in the industry have time to understand what is going on and to implement the correct procedures. And importantly in this Act, we are also bringing together residential and commercial contracts. That's quite a fundamental change there. Residential contracts and commercial contracts are not going to be treated differently. They're going to be treated the same. And so I think it's quite important, particularly for those in residential contracts, to have the time to understand this Act. Because one of the concerns which has come forward is around the whole ambushing claims. And again, I don't want to go into it in depth, but the long and the short is that someone who knows the Act inside and out could easily pull the wool over someone's eyes who doesn't. And the timeframes in the bill around claims is incredibly tight when responses are due and so forth. So we have to be very cautious there. I think, again, this is an important bill. I'm very pleased to say I come from a family of builders. My father, in fact, who's even in the gallery today by just sheer and utter coincidence, is a chippy from way back. Fortunately, his skills rubbed off onto my brother. I can maybe wave a hammer occasionally, but I would definitely trust him more. But actually, a family with that background. And while I haven't discussed this bill at length with my father, which is probably remiss, that's right. I have to do that now. I'll do a notice of motion tomorrow. I think it's important and to recognise that we as a government continue to try and improve this sector. So I'm very pleased to commend this bill to the House.